Welcome to Blend's Localization Leaders podcast, where we speak to industry leaders who are paving the way for advancements in localization and global language operations. This episode is hosted by Yoav Ziv, Blend's CEO. In this episode, we're joined by Yoram Pollack, an expert product marketer and storyteller.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this new episode of Localization Leaders. My name is Yoav Ziv. I'm the CEO of Blend. And together with me, I have my good friend Yoram Pollack. Hey, Yoram.
Hey, hi, Yoav.
Good. And today episode is going to be slightly different than the previous last few episodes, because we focused a lot about technology and AI and how AI changes everything about localization. But today I actually want to take a step back and look at the broader picture and use Yoram's experience and approach in content creation and storytelling, because Yoram is a product marketer and a storyteller, and go back to the basic idea that actually localization is part of the content creation flow. And so I want to take a step back, relax a little bit from our run after the latest engine, and just talk about the deeper meaning of localization and how, at the end of the day, we can use that in order to elevate the localization conversation from translation, which is a fairly tactical activity, to content creation, market demand generation, etc., which is more the storytelling part and content creation. So, Yoram, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't we start with, as usual, tell us a little bit about yourself to people who don't know you.
Yeah, so to the people who don't know me, who's probably everybody watching this, I'm Yoram. I'm a product marketer. I've been doing it for, I would say, around 25 years. Product marketing is, in essence, it's a function that has three legs. One of them sits very strongly in product and R&D, and the other two sit in marketing and sales. And the idea of product marketing is being able to talk engineer language, product language, understand, like face-to-face, one-on-one, talk to the people creating a technology or a professional service or whatever, and then creating content, translating that into a story, creating content that marketing and sales can use to create revenue. And it's, for me, from my experience, it's one of the most important functions in a B2B professional services company. It's almost always the biggest challenge. You have very good marketing and sales people who know the craft of marketing and sales, and you have great engineers and productors, but creating the connection between them, that's on product marketing. And that's what I've been doing as I said, for the past 25 years. I've worked with large companies like HP, BMC Software, a lot of high tech, but also with Teva Pharmaceuticals, Tambour Paints, which we did all the product marketing and storytelling for the architects, or Phoenix Insurance, which we did all the product marketing and storytelling for the insurance agents and everything. So anywhere where there's subject matter expertise needed in order to market and sell, a product marketing function has a lot of importance. And connected to our conversation is the fact that often you create that content in the language which you speak, in the market in which you operate mainly, which is usually English. But then you want to use that content elsewhere around the globe to expand your business and your revenue. And what I've learned from my experience and from others is that often people don't understand that localizing or taking content and creating it, like business content, and creating it for another market, it's not translation. It's actually recreating it in a different language. And in order to recreate content, which is professional, which is subject matter expert content, you need people who know how to do that. It's not something that's simple to do. And I think apart from explaining to people why you need product marketing, which I think these days people know much more, and explaining the importance of storytelling and how the story is the core of any business, I think the next challenge is explaining to companies and customers why, when they're expanding to different markets, they need an expertise, a partner with expertise in localizing and actually recreating.
So let me play it back, right? So what you're saying is that taking a product from the expertise, it can be engineering, but it's really not only engineering. right?
Could be services like financials, anything that's complex.
Anything that's complex, right? If it's not a straightforward product that sells itself, you need to bridge the gap between the people who are experts in this domain, who generally are not marketers and find it difficult maybe to even explain what that does, and create a story that is basically make the value of that product or service easy to understand by people who are not experts by the of the product or service. And then what you're saying is that in order to do it properly in different languages, it's not something that you can just translate, right? You can, obviously translation is part of it, but it's really recreating the content in its local language, but still maintaining the story that you meant to convey, right?
Yeah.
So I think, that's first, I gotta say, I completely agree with the product marketing approach that you present. And many times what I saw is that it's so difficult to bridge the gap that the people who are able to start bridging the gap are the CEO or like top executives, because they are the only ones who understand. They have some knowledge of go to market, they have some knowledge of the and so
Yeah, I agree. I think it's either CEOs that have come from a business development background, or it's technical CEOs who have failed once and understood that their failure was. I always say there's three things that you need to have in order for a product to succeed long term. One is that it needs to work, and I've worked with companies where the product doesn't work. Two, it needs to answer a need. Like I've also worked with companies that had a great product no one needed, but it needs to. The third thing is it needs to have a good story. And most startups fail because they might have a good product and they might have a market need, but they run out of runway. They can't tell their story well enough until their funding runs out. And that's the biggest issue. And I think only high level executives, as you say, really understand that from the get go.
And it's interesting because we have been doing a go-to-market transformation ourselves in Blend, right? We once we realized that we have a product that is different in the market, and we went through a lengthy process to try and convey that, what you would call a product marketing, right? And we started
Positioning. You wanted to position yourself properly, and it was difficult.
Yeah, so we started with, we do actually single flow of MT and then QE and then PE. So then we understood that people get lost in the details. And then it took us time to really understand that what we provide people is hassle-free localization, which is really taking all the mess, the technological mess and the platform and the project managers and this and that and the experts that we have, etc. And we are wrapping it up to people who just need good localization and they don't need the hassle, right? And it took us a long time to get there. And what you're saying is product marketers help.
That's their job.
Yeah, right. So
that's their job. As you said, like the engineers know the features, the technology. That doesn't. The CEO you're selling to doesn't care about those things. He wants to know what you do and what the value is. And the marketers usually understand marketing. They know like SEO and all the marketing techniques, but they don't have the ammunition to send out. They can't tell the story, and that's where we sit.
So it's interesting because one of the challenges in localization in the market, generally speaking, is that by and large, the people who use and buy localization are, generally speaking, not the top executives of the company.
Yeah.
And you can come up with great innovations and forward-looking inventions and approaches, etc. But at the end of the day, the person that you're talking to, he needs to just operate the translation or the localization on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes they don't have the mandate or the experience or the will or the desire to think what's going to happen in like 3 years, right? What I find interesting in your approach, and also some of the ways that we work together, is that when you enter the room, you naturally speak to the executives. right?
Yeah.
Your task cannot be done with the operational team. It has to be done with the executives, right?
Yeah. It might start like it might start that the lower team would say, I need a video, I need a blog. But then when you go into the room and you have the right people and they understand that they don't need a blog and they don't need a video, the issue starts somewhere much higher. And then often I do enter from the bottom and then climb to the top. The natural way would be, yes, to start with the executives. But as you said, even now, even with product marketing and storytelling clearly be understood by larger companies, it's still often misunderstood or considered as something that you do later on in startups and everything when they're really focused on getting the first customer sales, and that's where they start going in a direction and then they find out they've gone in the wrong direction and they should have done it to begin with.
And then they need to redo a lot of
Then
the
regroup,
storytelling.
yeah, and they call it pivoting. We're pivoting, and then do it all over again. And I think just off the top of my head, I think the word localization has an issue because it's because of, in the old world, it's been something that technical people do. You do more like good localization these days is actually marketing in different languages. It has to do. There needs to be some sort of repositioning and the way that you tell your story. To the technical people, yes, it's localization. They know that, but to the executive level, it's not localization. It's business. It's
I can tell
somewhere
you
in
from, yeah, I mean, I can tell you
business
from my own
development and
experience.
marketing.
I didn't know the word existed until I joined the industry, and to me it was always a fuzzy, pun intended, in the industry word, because it always seemed to me like some word that people created in order not to say translation, to
Yeah.
elevate it above translation. And I'm not entirely sure that this is a very successful word because it doesn't serve the purpose. Yes, the purpose is actually, I don't
It's
know.
very difficult to enter the room with the word localization and then go to where you want to be in the conversation. You have to enter the room already with some other, somebody. Positioning is setting expectations. When you say I'm a localization CEO, you're already set the mind of the person to hear something which is not what you want to say. So there needs to be some sort of repositioning of
Yeah.
this trade.
Now to the elephant in the room. If there is one thing that generative AI is considered good at, is actually less in translation. Actually, it's not very good in translation unless you do some really um, deep preparation with rugs and infrastructure, etc. So LLMs are better in creation than in translation. If you ask an LLM to create something, it will typically be good. If you ask it to translate something, it will be many times so and so. So how does the LLM and generative AI revolution impacts product marketing? And what do you see going in this? And by the way, there are many companies that are becoming or that are creating digital creation platforms that you don't need anything anymore and everything is done generated for you. So how do you see the domain of product marketing going forward?
So I'll go back to the statement that you said that usually when LLMs try to create something, it's good. It's not. I think therein lies the crutch, right? It's when you're dealing with professional material, whereas you're a company, you're developing a new service, you're developing a new technology, it's very difficult to get generative AI to create relevant content because LLMs and the way that they're built are based on existing things, right? So yes, generative AI has access to a ton of information and the speed to understand patterns and get information to one place and actually write it in a way that people like to read. But when you get into the content and you're in a professional space, it's not good enough. And we do have a lot of difficulties with that because we do want to, for example, if we're trying to create 10 to 12 blogs a month on really specific materials, even if we get our subject matter expert to speak to the current agents or Gen AI, the output is never good enough. I always say that this is my personal opinion. AI is overhyped and there's a herd mentality now. If you're not on AI, you've lost the game. I understand. yes, it's changing humanity, but we're in a stage where everybody's sort of hysterical. And I think as time goes by, I think people will understand. I think it's being more and more understood. It's still not commonplace, but I think in B2B and enterprises, it's being understood that the word intelligence is a bit misleading, right? For me, intelligence is being able to take 1+1 and create 3, which didn't exist before. So like Einstein would walk down the street and see a carriage passing, and then suddenly would come up with a theory, in a theory of relativity. LLMs can't do that. They can't create something that is not based on something that they've accessed before. And therefore, in the true professional world and the B2B professional expertise things, the human factor, the human in the loop, as people like to say, is especially important. Yes, we've moved from actually writing and spending hours to getting the first draft onto paper. That is done like in 2 minutes with agent, with agentic AI, with generative AI, and I do that as well. But then taking that and putting in the knowledge that's missing and making it, fit what we're trying to do. That's all right now. The way that AI is built, that's always going to be a human being done by humans.
So I'll tell you, I would like to refer to everything that you just said with a slight different, maybe way of articulating it. I think generative AI and AI in general, but specifically generative AI, enables us to crystallize our human edge, right? Because everything that can be done automatically by someone that is not an expert, right? Someone that is doing things okay. A lot of it can be done by generative AI, and that's fine. It should drive us, channel us to really ask ourselves, and that's true in every profession that has to do with automation, right? What is my human edge? Why am I part of this process and not do it completely automatic? And so in product marketing, for example, I dare to assume, even though I'm not an expert marketer, but I dare to assume that connecting all the dots together and coming up with like the overlay of the story and finding out what will make sense, etc. That you require a lot of integration and a lot of connecting. Then creating the material, okay, so the base like 80%, 70% can be done, and then you need another 30%. So to me, AI is welcomed. I think that I don't not only that I don't fight AI, and I don't think it's a hype. I think it's real, but I think the right way to look at AI is that it helps you to find the human edge. And I'll give you an example from just our own internal processes. Right? We made a hackathon of, I think people that follow Blend know that we took a agentic AI platform, and we basically asked people, what would you do? What does not respect you, right, to do as a human? And they came up with like a lot of great stuff, right? And a lot of it we were able to automate using the agentic AI. And now, not only that we train them on that technology, but it also enabled them to really respect themselves as not doing something that automation can do easily.
I didn't say it was a hype. I think it's overhyped. I think people are very hysterical about AI now because it's really advancing at an amazing pace. Nothing before, no revolution has advanced so quickly as AI. And I think people are hysterical to fit, to miss the train or that they'll be replaced. And I think that's where it's a bit overhyped. I do totally agree with you. AI makes me a better product marketer. It makes me more, I let it do the things that are just a waste of time for me and that I find difficult to do, which are manual. And it leaves me to do exactly what's the core of my profession. And sometimes it might come up with a good idea that I don't even need to change. I might, if it's happened before and somewhere else, and I'm trying to do a positioning, exercise or come up with the right text for a certain service or company, and it's pretty close to something else that exists, I might say, wow, this is great. It's great that I asked for it. It doesn't always, it's not always, it doesn't always happen, but it does. But it still leaves me, as you said, to do my core profession. And then it takes away all the hassle.
All right, awesome. So, what would be a good advice to localization experts, whether they are in company or are selling localization? How would you recommend them to think or to use this approach or the understanding that really localization or translation or whatever we would call it is part of a bigger game? What would you recommend us, the industry, to change?
Yeah, I think localization needs rebranding. I think if you're if you're a leader in the field and you're changing the way, I think maybe you should rethink the word look. I mean, this is not a rebranding exercise online, but somewhere the way that you approach CEOs and businesses is not with the word localization. So that's like a very big thing that needs to be thought about. And then, professionally, I think the biggest connection is the human connection. So because I am an engineer, I'm originally an engineer, and I'm I was a product manager. When I come to customers, I speak their language. They suddenly see somebody who's like them, and then I'm not selling them product marketing. I'm not selling them anything. I'm with them. I understand their problem, and I offer them solutions. I can then go back and say, this is product marketing, what I'm doing, but basically I'm joining them at what they are, and that's the issue with localization, because majority of people of localizations are either translators or writers. They're not from the industry. You need to be able to come to a customer, whether he's in a finance world or is a high-tech guy, whatever, and the person in the room, one person in the room at least, needs to be from his profession and speak his language, and then it's just like that. Then it's magic, because when you're there and you show them that you understand what they're going through, then whatever you offer he's looking at the eyes of somebody who's like him, not a localization company, not a vendor who's trying to sell them the service. That's the most important thing, and I think that's the biggest issue with localization today, is that it still relies on old school. Not old school seems a bad word, but it's the people who are originally in localization are translators and writers and technical writers, but they're not from the industry. They're not the engineers, the subject matter experts, the marketers, and you need a lot of those in
the
there.
industry of the customers. Yes.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like I'm an engineer. I can go into anywhere. I'm not that smart. I'm just an engineer and I have the right background, so I can go into a security startup or an infrastructure startup, and after 2 or 3 meetings, I know to speak their language. It's not that different. You don't need to be an expert to be able to, you need to be an engineer, but you don't need to be an expert in that thing to understand what they're doing and talk their language.
Enough to convey the value.
Yeah.
And it's probably a lot of questions too. I mean, you just need to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
All right.
They need to understand. They need to understand that you're not selling them anything. That you understand. That you're there and you get their problem, and you're offering them solutions. They might and might not use you, but it's not somebody trying to sell them something. Translation is a commodity. I'm sorry to say, it's a commodity, and executives don't want to even talk about it. It's not. It's not.
They need it done. They just need it done. All right. Yoram, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure and enlightening and thought-provoking. And everyone, thank you for joining us, and see you next time.